Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to present recent developments in Antioquia Gold in our operations in Cisneros. Here are the disclaimers. As we are a company that is listed in the Toronto Stock Exchange Ventures in Canada. Our operations recently have had the following developments. We are located in Cisneros, which is in the structural corridor of gold mineralization within the Batolith of Antioquia, a source of gold deposits in the region. We have several accesses through highways and are approximately 1.5 hours drive from Medellin in Colombia. We have 17,000 hectares of mining concessions. We recently acquired 2 concessions from our previous presenter, Gramalote, namely Cantayuz and La Palma, these 2 titles here that are very close to our previous concessions. And we have 2 mines, Guayabito and Huayco, which are approximately 3 kilometers apart. We are operating these concessions, so we have plenty of years to continue exploiting them. Milestones and achievements in 2020, we completed the plant expansion project, which allowed us to double the size of the plant from 600 tons per day to 1,200 tons per day. We also did a lot of preparation of stopes for sublevel stoping, which is the method of mining that we have chosen for mining the narrow veins. And we also prepared several stopes for the new shear zone, increasing also the height of the benches that we are doing also in sublevel stoping to 27 meters benches. We also consolidated a significant increase in third-party mineral purchasing, and we also performed a diamond drilling exploration program, which actually suggests that our new shear zone widens and enriches it as it deepens. So we are very enthusiastic and optimistic with respect to the future of the company. As I mentioned before, our plant is now at 1,200 tons per day. We also have a new operational water line with sufficient flow to operate this size of plant. And we also expanded our tailings dam, and we have at least 3 years of storage capacity at that current level of production. We might increase the plant size again in the near future as we continue to find more resources. We have 2 types of mineralizations, a shear zone, which is very white, which has the same name as the river that is nearby our concessions, Nus. We are mining that with sublevel stoping, as I mentioned before, with 27-meter benches stopes. We have currently 300,000 tons of prepared resources and an average grade of 2.62 grams per ton. That gives us 25,000 ounces of gold approximately. We started with 12-meter tall benches. We then went to 16 meters, and now we're mining at 27 meters as it is shown in this slide. We have gained experience and confidence that that height will be very safe still with mining at such tall heights. The reserves can be seen in yellow here, and the mined resources are those in gray. We have also, as I mentioned, prepared resources for 70,000 tons of narrow veins, which are richer veins. Those resources are prepared at 585 grams per ton. That will allow us to mine 13,000 ounces additionally. The reserves are those shown in yellow here. The green tunnels are already made, and the mined resources are those in gray, as in the previous slide. Earlier, I mentioned that we have also grown in acquiring third-party mineral, third-party ore, third-party mineralized material from several artisanal miners in the zone and beyond. That is currently amounting to 24% of the total gold produced that is coming from third parties. And it's an alternative to small formalized miners close to the operation for the benefit of their production with a high percentage recovery. We recover 96 to 97% of the gold contained in the ore, and also they eliminate their or mitigate their environmental impact as they don't have to use reactives that are not allowed. You can see in the graph, we have expanded the purchased material in ounces from less than 200 in January to more than 600 in October, and has been a steady growth. And the gold recovery is also shown there. The percentage is the percentage of the total production coming from third-party mineral. So it has averaged between 24 and 30% those months. We continue to do exploration. The results of the program executed in 2019 and 2020 are shown in this graph. We have added resources that are shown in the graph in between 1.5 and 3 grams, and also resources we have gotten to levels where we have more than 3 grams per ton in the News shear zone. The deepest impact that we have to confirm the existence of resources are in the level 900. We're currently mining at the 1100 meters above the level of the sea level. So we have confirmed resources that are 200 meters below our current level of mining. We will continue to do more drilling to confirm those resources and expand those in the future. Our operating results are shown in this graph. We, as you can see, have expanded the grade of the mined ore from 2.5 grams at the beginning of the year to 4.27 in July. Then we dropped. We have had some issues and problems with the pandemic that didn't allow us to bring the equipment that we needed and the maintenance people from our Central America contractor. And therefore, we decided to change contractor recently, and that has impacted our grade recently. I think this is a very temporary decrease. We will go back to where we have been. And also in the chart in the top, you see that we have expanded significantly the number of tons that we have passed through the plant as a result of the recently expansion. Our recovery continues to be very high. It actually reached a record of 97.2% of recovered gold in October. And our production of gold in ounces has reached above 2,200 ounces per month. We expect the following months to be better as we solve the contractor issues that I mentioned before. Here are the total production and grade for the entire year 2019 as compared to the year 2020. Our grade increased from 255 to 307. Our number of tons has expanded from 137,000 to 168,000. Our recovery increased. Our gold produced also increased from 10,000. I'm sorry, from 10,000 ounces to 16,000 ounces, and we haven't put here the November and December, which will also add about 4,500 ounces in addition to that. So we should reach 20,000 ounces of gold north of that in this year, 2020. We have also turned EBITDA positive. Has been difficult months. We have corrected some issues that we had in the company. The plant size was one, for instance. The low volume with the low grade didn't allow us to make a profit. We turned the plant into a 1,200 tons per day, as I mentioned before. That has allowed us to pass more tons and dilute fixed costs, and reaching profitability in July, August, September to around $2 million per month. As the grade increases and we continue to expand our resources, we expect this to improve significantly in the future, as I will mention later on in the presentation. As I mentioned there at the bottom, the results of the first semester are explained by the reorganization of the mining operations, and the work has been focused on preparation of stopes, which we haven't mined yet, and also we had some additional costs as a result of the pandemic. Main strategic plans in the near future are, we, as I mentioned, acquired a mine, La Palma, from our neighboring company, neighboring mine, Gramalote. We are in the process of studying and performing the engineering for accessing these resources, and also connecting the mines, which I will explain soon. This is a night view of the plant that we have in Cisneros. La Palma is a mine that is located 12 kilometers away from the mining operations and the process plant, but with a very good road, asphalted road. There are two veins identified over 300 meters of the strike, and also there's a new type shear zone identified in the surface that we plan to drill in 2021, in the 2021 exploration program. So we are very optimistic as to the resources that we will find there.
OutCrop Gold's a prospect generator, but we have 8 projects currently. 7 are available for joint venture, but we are drilling our high-grade silver project, Santa Ana. That's what I'll be talking about. I'll be making certain forward-looking statements that pertain to risk and should be read at your leisure. So Santa Ana, it's our flagship asset. It's a colonial era high-grade silver and gold district. There are reports in Indiana University recovered from the Royal Spanish Archives that report 14 mines producing in an average of 4 kilograms silver over an average of 1.4 meters up to 17 kilograms silver. The project is 100% owned. We've recently expanded it to 25,000 hectares. We capture now most of the Mariquita Silver District, and it's really a regional play now. We have good highway access, grid power, water, strong community support, and very good security for the area. When we came in, there was only drilling from 2012, 1,800 meters from one station, but it did have values as high as 2.5 kilograms equivalent silver per ton in that. We didn't want to drill there, so we went 1.5 kilometers to the north and drilled what we considered a discovery of a chute called La Ivana. To date, our best intercept is 0.95 meters of 70 grams gold and 5.55 kilograms silver. Roughly, that's 10.8 kilograms equivalent silver per ton. So we really are seeing those famous intercepts of the colonial era, and we think we may continue to do so. Santa Ana Project is a system of high and low angle intersecting veins. The northeast are typical high angle and occur in clusters. Because they occur close together in places, we can composite just desktop study vein and intervening wall rock and come up with up to 18 meters at 450 equivalent grams silver per ton. The west-northwest typically are low-angle veins. They intersect. The low-angle veins are commonly stacked with footwall, hanging wall, and footwall veins above and below the primary vein. The relationship is poorly understood with precision, but it looks like the intersections or convergence of the low and high angle may produce relatively higher grades. You can just quickly review some of those numbers on the left: 4.6 kilograms, 876 grams silver per ton, 29 grams gold, 1.6 kilograms silver per ton. But importantly, we've got 3 discoveries in a very short time. We discovered La Ivana in March 2020. We discovered Megapozo in July 2020, and we discovered we confirmed and expanded the Roboto Tovar in September 2020. The chutes are very large. They can be up to 300 by 300 meters. We have a deep hole we just completed in La Ivana that has sulfidic vein at 450 meters below the surface. And all the mineralization is outcropping to date. This is just a quick shot at what the high grade looks like. There's 4 or more events. There's a massive sulfide of pyrite, sphalerite, galena. There's that massive sulfide has been brecciated. We have typical banded veins, and then we also have veinlets and druzy vugs in veins as a halo to the more sulfidic and quartz veins. My opinion is that it's an intermediate sulfidation system. This is just another picture of a good hole, 1 meter at 21 grams gold, 4.68 kilograms silver. The coarse sulfides can be up to centimeter wide bands, 1 or 2 centimeter wide bands. Typically, the black schists have better grade, and the green schists have lesser grade, but both can be significantly mineralized. This is just a close-up of some of the high grade, 4 meters at 6.6 grams and 1 kilogram silver in the rest of this interval. This is just a core detail of coarse banded sulfide. We have, we think, 14 kilometers of cumulative strike of vein zone projections. Most of that's supported by at least some amount of primitive historic workings that cut the vein at high levels. And in contrast to a good part of the rainforests in Colombia, we have outcropping veins for significant parts of the vein traces. We have 3 high-grade chutes discovered to date. This is how they're distributed. Basically, well, the 3 chutes are La Ivana to the north, Megapozo central, and Roboto Tovar. All 3 of them are in different vein sets. El Dorado and San Antonio will be the next targets, or the targets we're moving to. We've actually started drilling, indicated there by the arrows in both of those areas. La Ivana and Megapozo are low angle, and El Dorado and Roboto Tovar are high angle to subvertical. We've broken the project in those same veins into 10 project areas. All of them are supported by some amount of workings or trench or outcrop or float sample. We've now completed, I think, 12,000 soil and trench samples. We probably have over a kilometer uh, of trenching done. We mobilized a second drill rig in September, um, and we expect uh, to complete a 12,000 meter program in a in probably in January or February of 2021. This is just a simple solids model of the La Ivana, but you can see they're quite large. That's a 200-meter scale bar at the greater than 10-gram equivalent contour in yellow red, and or greater than 800 equivalent grade contours. They're 210 meters by this case at 200 meters at outcropping at surface on the right side of the polygons, and down dip to 210 meters on that northwest sort of plunge or rake. And that's where we have 260 meters deeper than these holes. We have another hit of sulfide vein that we're waiting for assay. So they're well-defined continuous chutes at good grade. This one, as a solid model, is 0.6 meters thick, 200 meters by 200 meters, open to the northeast at surface, to wet and to west at depth. We just did a really simple, this is just a exploration type estimation. We did a very simple model, solid calculation. This volume came up with 15.2 grams gold and 1.2 grams silver, 1% zinc and 0.6% lead. These monitors are stacked. So there'll be veins above and below this representation illustration of the primary vein. Drilling indicates for Megapozo, drilling indicates 300 meters along surface, 310 meters down dip. There is a space between high-grade mineralization along the plunge of the vein. This Megapozo just has a 0.75 meter average thickness. It has a weighted average grade of all the holes in this polygon of 11 grams gold per ton and 780 grams silver per ton. It's actually significantly larger at this point than our first discovery, La Ivana, and the high grades open in all directions. The Roberto Tovar, it's a high angle vein set. The vein, or the vein that the Roberto Tovar occupies, extends up to 2.2 kilometers. So we'll be testing for additional chutes along it. That's the actual Santa Ana vein system. Roberto Tovar right now is 150 meters down dip from historical workings, about 150 meter width, mineralizations in all directions. It's an intercept average of 1.3 meters with a high of 3.52 meters intercept width. Just taking everything as a weighted average grade is 1.44 kilograms equivalent grams silver per ton. Open in 3 directions, and we're actively infilling and offsetting along strike and at depth this chute. We've been fortunate to do their applications, but we've been fortunate to acquire 25,000 contiguous hectares from the original land holdings. Numerous workings with high-grade mineralization. These mine symbols are actually from the old Ingiominas database, and usually have samples some have high-grade samples that correlate. Importantly, we've also now controlled the Frias mine, which has records of 10 to 12 million ounces silver production before 1907, when it shut down due to political instability, and really a very fairly shallow mine, probably all production between the surface and 200 meters depth. Our social responsibility is much like everyone else's, but it seems to be working. We were able to get the drill permit on Santa Ana in roughly 2 months. We have We think we're going to have a drill permit in Majama, our project in Nariño by June 2021, and that is on indigenous lands, and we've built good relationships with the indigenous community and the indigenous artisan miners. So the corporate catalyst for Santa Ana would be we will complete the 12,000 meter exploration drill program underway and have continuous reporting of assays every 2 to 3 weeks. We have 4,600 meters to complete. Then we will probably initiate another phase of exploration drilling depending on results. It may be as much as another 12,000 meters, but we haven't got to that point of planning. But we expect continuous news results from drilling these high-grade veins. We may think about resource delineation sometime late in 2021, but we might well just still be in the exploration phase. And we'd rather just get a larger and larger count of shoots than go into resource delineation, unless it was for a specific reason to understand these things maybe pre-economically. We may have produced an inferred resource, that should say 2022, I'm sorry, and we'll generate drill targets on the 25,000 hectare acquisition. I can be reached at aber@outcropgoldcorp.com, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Perfect.
Buenas tardes con todos. Bueno, la única presentación en español. Agradable también, estamos en Colombia y buena oportunidad. Ahora les voy a presentar el proyecto La Plata, es el turno del proyecto La Plata, pero esta vez desde Ecuador. Otro de los proyectos y el futuro cercano, promisorio del grupo Atico. El proyecto La Plata está ubicado en la parte norte central del Ecuador. Como lo dijo Mark del grupo Atico esta mañana, Ecuador de pronto sí en estos últimos años está saliendo un poco adelante a Colombia en el tema de agilización de toda esa tramitología que todos conocemos, que es bastante engorrosa y que ahora no está perturbando tanto a todas las empresas de exploración. Como vemos en Ecuador, estamos con una gran cantidad de empresas, algunas de ellas muy importantes dentro del sector o de las más grandes, con proyectos y en los últimos años grandes descubrimientos y apertura de nuevas minas, lo que hace que Ecuador sea un objetivo en este momento para el mundo minero y, por supuesto, estamos ahí nosotros con el Grupo La Plata y lo que nos indica que estamos en el lugar indicado. Como les comenté, el proyecto La Plata está localizado en la parte norte central, en la cordillera occidental, más o menos a unos 100 kilómetros al suroeste de Quito, unos 25 kilómetros de Santo Domingo de los Áchilas, otra de las ciudades principales de Ecuador, con muy buenas vías de acceso, localmente en la provincia del Cotopaxi, en la parroquia de Las Pampas y principalmente en la parroquia de Palo Quemado. Lo que la imagen que vemos aquí en la parte derecha es el mapa de predios del título minero, el cual comprende 2.300 hectáreas, más o menos el depósito principal, lo ya conocido, está ubicado sobre este sector que estoy señalando indicado con mi puntero, en el recinto de las minas. Obviamente toma el nombre de las minas por la amplia historia que tiene el proyecto La Plata. Hablando un poco de la geología del proyecto La Plata, se encuentra hospedado en rocas de origen volcano-sedimentario, una franja que se extiende por 500 kilómetros en sentido norte-sur en el Ecuador, más o menos unos 50 kilómetros de ancho. Esta franja volcano-sedimentaria de origen de arco de islas volcánicos, muy propicia para la formación de sulfuros masivos volcanogénicos. Dentro de esta franja también tenemos otros depósitos históricos, como son Macuchi, un poco más al sur, y el Domo. Localmente, ya la geología del depósito, aquí en esta imagen central tenemos más o menos el mapa de alteraciones, pero localmente en la columna estratigráfica tenemos que el sulfuro masivo se da justo en el cambio composicional de rocas un poco más ácidas, dacitas, andesitas, a el hanging wall, con composiciones más básicas de basaltos y basaltos andesíticos. Y finalmente, todo esto, toda esta secuencia, toda esta columna estratigráfica cortada por doleritas. La mineralización en el proyecto de La Plata se da obviamente, como su nombre lo dice, sulfuros masivos, como vemos aquí en la esquina superior izquierda, sulfuros masivos de pirita y calcopirita, que se ubican en la parte central del depósito. Hacia los laterales, sulfuros de esfalerita, galena y algo de varita hacia los laterales, y en la parte del techo del depósito se presentan diferentes texturas bandeadas, brechadas, como en esta imagen de arriba superior derecha, y en general interceptos muy ricos, como los que vemos aquí en esta imagen, de cerca del 60% lo compone calcopirita. Uno de las cosas más llamativas y por las que Atico Mining decidió ingresar a este proyecto, adquirir parte, en su gran mayoría, de Toachi Mining, fue la gran potencial cercano que tiene de crecimiento del depósito. En el bloque sur está todavía abierto en su parte sur, en dirección del plunge del anticlinal. Entre los dos cuerpos también tiene bastante posibilidad de crecer, como lo vamos a ver ahorita, que ahora actualmente en el programa de Infill 2020 estamos teniendo buenos resultados, y en la parte norte con respecto al bloque norte también tenemos oportunidad de crecer con intervalos históricos existentes que demuestran la continuidad de estos lentes de sulfuro masivo volcanogénico. También se observa en esta diapositiva, en este slide, que existió minería en este bloque norte, pero muy incipiente, algunos trabajos abandonados, eso que en los años que realizaron esta minería no se entendía muy bien el tipo de depósito que se estaba explotando. Perdón. Este es el cálculo de recursos inferidos que se realizó por parte de Toachi Mining en el momento, en el 2017, el cual calcula para el bloque sur 850.000 toneladas a 12,9 gramos por tonelada equivalente. En conjunto, 1,5 millones de toneladas para el bloque norte, sumando un total de 1,9 millones de toneladas con estos valores en promedio. El trabajo de Atico Mining este año está enfocado en corroborar esos recursos y la ampliación cercana a estos cuerpos, y de la cual estamos teniendo muy buenos resultados. Como lo indicamos, esto es un sondaje de este año que supera a los sondajes históricos reportados y el cual se realizó en esta zona entre los dos cuerpos que les había mencionado, la cual tiene 5,64 metros a 12 gramos de oro, 137 gramos de plata, 9,2% de cobre y 12% de zinc. Esta vista en perspectiva, esta sección nos muestra la distribución de valores en el depósito, las posibles zonas de expansión. También vemos aquí en la parte norte el resultado de un sondaje histórico que se realizó en el 2017, el cuarto un intercepto de sulfuro masivo con estos valores. Vemos que son realmente altos estos valores de oro equivalente para los cubos de color rojo. Estos son resultados de este año. Realmente estamos muy satisfechos de tener este depósito y de tener estos resultados. Estamos corroborando toda la información. Obviamente, a medida que se incrementa la confianza en el recurso, encontramos nuevas zonas, los cuerpos van cambiando un poco la forma porque obviamente se va interpretando la información geológica adquirida y esto nos conlleva a ser más puntuales, más exactos en los interceptos, para decir más o menos los posibles intervalos o interceptos. Y como vemos, estos son unos resultados increíbles. Como vemos este ejemplo, 32 gramos por tonelada de oro, 237 gramos por tonelada de plata, 16% de cobre, 2,16% de zinc en 1.31 metros para unas zonas, otras zonas 5,64 como el que vimos ahorita, 5,33 metros. En general, son zonas muy ricas. Una de las características del área o del título minero y por las cuales Atico Mine también tomó la decisión de ingresar al Ecuador, específicamente el proyecto La Plata, es por su potencial de exploración regional. Dentro de las 2.300 hectáreas que componen su título actual, posee diferentes zonas históricamente que se realizaron en campañas diferentes de exploración entre 1996 y el 2006 por Cornerstone y por Cambior, en las cuales delimitaron nuevos targets con mineralización tipo BMS a través de todas las herramientas con las que contamos actualmente para la exploración geoquímica, para este caso, con mapeo geológico de alteraciones, en amarillo cuarzo sericita, en verde clorita, típico de este tipo de depósitos. En este tenemos una conjugación de alteraciones con IP, de altos cargables, bajos resistivos y una combinación de geología con estructural, con todas las herramientas y categorizamos targets y tenemos 5 targets de perforación, los cuales estaremos en un futuro tratando de encontrar nuevos recursos. Esto es un estudio gravimétrico que concuerda perfectamente con los cuerpos conocidos. En esta zona donde está mi puntero está el cuerpo norte, en esta zona el cuerpo sur. Posiblemente no se marca muy bien la anomalía, puesto que en el cuerpo sur estamos a 400 metros de profundidad, en el cuerpo norte estamos prácticamente en superficie, por eso de pronto la respuesta tan buena del método y muy favorable que todos los otros targets identificados se correlacionan completamente con IP, con geofísica, con geoquímica y mapeo de superficie. Entonces, es algo muy bueno, con gran potencial y que esperamos ser muy exitosos en los próximos años. En resumen, La mineralización de la plata es definida como un BMS muy rico en oro, muy anormal porque por lo general estos BMS son ricos en cobre, zinc, plomo, pero no tan ricos en oro. Vemos es muy rico en oro y se puede, ocurre en lentes de sulfuro masivo y semimasivo y asociados con características muy similares a los tipo Kuroko. Usualmente son sonados, como vimos, tienen un core de más alta temperatura de calcopirita y con laterales o al techo con zinc, plomo, con un stonework por lo general no es de muy alto grado, pero por ejemplo en La Plata, en el bloque sur, sí tenemos un stonework bien económico. También lo caracterizan varitina en el techo, lo mismo que una unidad de chert con jaspe en el techo, muy característicos de estos depósitos. También en los laterales vemos yeso, algo, o sea, tubos de yeso, algo también muy típico de estos depósitos. Estos depósitos típicamente son en promedio de 1 a 2 millones de 1 a 2 millones de toneladas, pero dentro del mismo nivel estratigráfico se pueden encontrar más de estos lentes. Y en La Plata tenemos una franja de 5 kilómetros en la cual ya vimos que tenemos bastantes ocurrencias y las cuales vamos a perforar en un futuro. Hasta el presente, hasta en la fecha, se han realizado 5 campañas de perforación, un total de 36.071 metros perforados adentro del depósito, bueno, del depósito no, en total del título minero, pues que están incluidos los de exploración también.
Buenas tardes a todos, mi nombre es Sara Armstrong Montoya, soy la vicepresidente y General Counsel de Cordoba Minerals Corp y también la presidente de Minerales Cordoba SAS acá en Colombia. Estoy acá acompañada con mi compañero Oscar Pinilla, que es el jefe del proyecto, que me va a ayudar con la parte técnica de la presentación. Cordoba es una empresa emergente de cobre y oro. Estamos listados en el TSXV con el ticker CDB. Y en este momento tenemos casi 900 millones de acciones en circulación, casi 90 millones opciones. El valor de la acción es casi 10 centavos canadiense y la capitalización de bursátil es casi 90 millones de dólares canadiense. Nuestra posición en efectivo es casi 5 millones de dólares y que es High Power Exploration Inc. y con casi 60% y JCHX que tiene 19.9%. Como mencioné, la accionista clave es High Power Exploration. El fundador, el CEO, es el señor Robert Friedland, que es una de las personas más exitosas en el mundo en el último 40 años de exploración. También es el fundador y presidente ejecutivo de Ivanhoe Mines y el del proyecto Oyu Tolgoi en Mongolia y el fundador y copresidente de Diamond Fields Resources. También tenemos el señor Eric Finlayson, quien es el presidente de HPX y el exdirector global de exploración de Rio Tinto. Y Charles Forster, que es el co-descubridor de los depósitos de cobre y oro de Oyu Tolgoi en Mongolia. Él es el vicepresidente de exploración de ambos HPX y de Cordoba. Nosotros estamos explorando en estamos explorando en 2 cinturones de porfirio de cobre de clase mundial. El equipo directivo tiene un historial comprobado de descubrimiento Estamos fuertemente respaldados por accionistas claves que HPX y JCHX. Y estamos desarrollando acelerados del depósito del alacrán en San Matías. Nosotros en junio, el 30 de junio de este año, nosotros adquirimos 100% del proyecto del alacrán. Hicimos un estudio económico preliminar en julio de 2019, a donde tenemos 210 millones de dólares después de los impuestos y con un valor neto de utilidad de 8% y 20.3% del IRR. Es con una inversión de capital inicial baja, amortización a 5 años, bajos costos en efectivo, concentrado de cobre limpio, y tenemos múltiples oportunidades de valor agregado. Norman, quien hizo el estudio preliminar, incluyó la adición de plata. Han demostrado que la saprolita puede ser minada con la roca. La saprolita no es desechos, podría ser procesada aproximadamente 75% roca y 25% saprolita. Estudios adicionales están en proceso para demostrar este. También el concentrado de cobre es limpio y tiene materiales no comerciales como arsénico. El cobre tiene contenidos de oro y plata sólida. Y es posible que estos materiales tengan demanda en los fundidores en Japón, China, Corea y otros. Es decir, que tenemos más flexibilidad. Es probable que el contenido de oro y plata lo haga concentrado atractivo a los comerciantes para mezclas, y más gente va a opcionar a más alto precio. Estamos haciendo el estudio de prefactibilidad para finales del tercer trimestre de 2021. Bueno, para hablar un poco del proyecto del alacrán en San Matías. San Matías es un distrito mineral completamente nuevo. Solamente hemos explorado como 1% del área de que tenemos. Tenemos más o menos 150,000 hectáreas de título otorgado y 30,000 hectáreas de solicitudes. Y como mencioné, este es 100% de la propiedad de Cordoba. El estudio preliminar describe un proyecto robusto de cobre, oro y plata. Tenemos 23 años de vida útil, un tenor competitivo y con bajo costo. El estudio fue por 8,000 toneladas por día y tiene un requisito de capital inicial de 161 millones de dólares. Este estudio preliminar fue diseñado con inversión de capital baja con una amortización de 5 años, y desde el año 6 se incrementa a 16,000 toneladas por día. Estamos en este momento haciendo unos estudios para optimizar la tasa de producción y posiblemente comenzar con más toneladas por día. Tenemos 745 millones de flujo de efectivo libre después de estos impuestos, 211 millones de dólares después los impuestos de valor neto, utilidad de 8% y como mencioné, de 20.3% IRR. Tenemos múltiples oportunidades para incrementar el valor del proyecto que mencioné ahora, con recuperaciones metalúrgicas mejoradas, requisitos de capital reducidos y mejora de la eficiencia fiscal. La optimización tiene el potencial para aumentar significativamente el valor neto de utilidad. Ahora voy a preguntar que mi compañero Oscar habla un poco más de la geología del proyecto.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes para todos. Mi nombre es Oscar Pinilla y pues yo les voy a contar pues, un poco más de la parte técnica del proyecto. Como ya lo nombraba Sara, en los estudios preliminares se empezó ya a hacer el diseño minero y empezamos como a desarrollar todo lo que es a desarrollar los estudios para empezar a revisar lo que es el pit principal del alacrán, donde quedarían la presa de colas, donde estarían los pits satélites, las zonas de estériles, donde estarían las oficinas, campamentos. Esto queda dentro de los estudios del PA, del estudio preliminar. En este momento, pues estamos, digamos, nos encontramos suspendidos, pero estamos a la espera de la junta directiva para reiniciar las labores. Adicional a esto, cuando iniciemos la fase ya de más producción, como lo nombraba Sara, cuando subamos a 16.000 toneladas, tenemos unos pit satélites que están localizados un poco más al noreste y sureste, que serían los Montiel y Costa Azul. Esta es una panorámica de lo que sería el Alacrán. Eso es una vista hacia el sur. Ese sería el Cerro Norte, Cerro Sur, o lo que conocemos como Mina Seca. Acá al fondo vemos la comunidad del Alacrán. Un poco como para entender lo nuevo que se encontró en el depósito, o lo que Normin, en lo que Normin nos ha ayudado mucho, y es aumentar un poco los recursos, y donde se identifican unas estructuras verticales, aparte de lo que se tenía anteriormente, que eran las estructuras subverticales con un tip aproximado de 45, 46 grados, 50 grados en algunos sectores, algunas un poco más verticales, pero adicional a esto, Normin observó y correlacionó unas unidades más verticales de grado alto de oro, las cuales están correlacionadas norte-sur. Esto hizo pues que nos aumentaran los recursos a comparación con lo que teníamos anteriormente, y adicional también el PIB se aumentó de tamaño un poco. Entonces, esto hizo que aumentáramos los recursos en el último estudio preliminar. Un poco comparado con otros depósitos a nivel mundial, tenemos Atalaya Mining de Río Tinto en España, el T3 de Botswana, y comparado con otros en Córdoba. Entonces tenemos pues que como los demás depósitos somos dueños ya del 100%, como lo nombraba Sara. El estado del proyecto comparado con los otros, estamos en el estudio de prefactibilidad, del PA, y estamos iniciando el estudio de prefactibilidad. Comparación de ellos, que ya están en el estudio de factibilidad y producción. Tenemos también entonces las reservas minerales. Pues como pueden observar, nosotros tenemos unos buenos tenores, unos buenos valores. Tenemos aproximadamente un 45.45% de cobre, unos 0.26 gramos por tonelada de oro y 2,4 gramos por tonelada de plata. Comparado con los otros depósitos, tenemos pues una buena calidad.
Un minuto más, por favor.
Ok, listo. En resumen, comparado con estos otros depósitos, decimos pues que estamos en una buena etapa y estamos con una buena perspectiva, un buen futuro.
Y bueno, y para terminar también tenemos unos hitos específicos. Entonces, para el estudio de prefactibilidad estamos hablando del primer trimestre del otro año, el estudio de factibilidad para el final de 2022, y estamos mirando en este momento para construir la mina en 2024. ¿Estamos con tiempo o tengo un poco más?
Hi, everyone. My name's Stan Earl. I'm the president and CEO of Solaris Resources. Happy to be here today to tell you about the company. So Solaris Resources, the way I describe it is as a copper gold growth and discovery story. Now, this was spun out of Equinox Gold in mid-2018. Equinox is totally consumed with its mission of becoming a leading mid-tier gold producer. So they're going from 200,000 ounces last year to over 1 million ounces in the next couple of years. And what they did with Solaris is partner with the Augusta Group to surface the value and what they conceived of at the time as a a copper exploration and development portfolio. Augusta has a totally unrivaled track record of value creation, specifically in this niche of exploration development within the mining sector. And that totals over $4.5 billion of exit transactions over the last decade. So really the perfect partner for the task that Equinox had at hand. And so these transactions would include Ventana Gold, which was sold for $1.6 billion in 2011, Augusta Resource Corp, which was sold for $670 million in 2014, co-founding Equinox Gold itself, which is now a $4 billion market cap, that was in 2017, and then most recently selling Arizona Mining for over $2 billion in 2018. So that's Augusta, that's your management of this company. But then the company's got important strategic backing from Equinox Gold at the top of our share register, and Ross Beatty, both through Equinox and then through a private investment that he made, as well as Lucas Lundin. So between those three, Richard Wark, the principal of the Augusta Group, Ross Beatty, and Lucas Lundin, you have among the most successful players in the mining industry who've generated billions of dollars of shareholder value over the course of their careers. Now, the Lundin brand is the one that's particularly important to us in Ecuador, and that's because of the tremendous job that Lundin Gold did in advancing, well, first opening the mining sector in 2014 with the acquisition of Fruta del Norte, but then advancing that project in a socially and environmentally responsible fashion and really dramatically shifting sentiment towards the mining industry and foreign participation within the mining industry in Ecuador generally, but specifically in our part of Ecuador, in the southeast of the country. So they're the ones that created the political space and then cemented it in place for companies like ours to follow through with the next series of projects. And then the final aspect of the story here is honoring the legacy of David Lowell. He unfortunately passed away in May. David was the world's greatest explorer. He codified the porphyry copper model, which now accounts for 60% of the world's copper resources. And then he went on to make more discoveries of greater consequence than anyone in history, including the greatest discovery of them all, La Escondida, which is now by far the world's largest copper mine, more than twice the size of the next largest mine. So our flagship project, Warintza in Ecuador, this was actually his discovery from the early 2000s. So what we need to do to honor his legacy here is to fully drill out the resource that he got started at Warintza Central. But then we've got to make the additional discoveries that there are to be made on the rest of the Warintza porphyry trend. We've got to make the gold discoveries that we've identified in more recent work that there may be on the property. And then even beyond Warintza, we've got a whole pipeline of projects, grassroots exploration projects that David put together. These were David's targets for future discovery. And certainly we've got to test those. And really in all of these ways, with Warintza and then with the rest of the portfolio, this is how we're going to properly honor David's legacy and write a fitting epilogue to his legendary career. In terms of our capital structure, relatively tight structure, 70% of our shares are tightly held by insiders of the company and strategic shareholders. The float is largely comprised of the shares that were formed in the creation of the company in the first place and spun out to Equinox shareholders mid 2018. So we've got thousands of shareholders in this company, a lot of eyes, and we've been able to bring up the liquidity in the story and do it the right way by bringing new people with the results that we've put out, bringing new people into the story to trade our stock and building up the value per share so that we're now trading anywhere from $500,000 a day to $1 million a day or more. In terms of our cash position, 25 million at the end of Q2, more than adequate for the 12 months from that point. And then we've got Equinox linked warrants. These are Equinox's warrants that trade on the TSX and the New York Stock Exchange. They're in the money currently. They're due by October of next year. And if they're exercised in full, then that's going to bring in a further $26 million of proceeds to our treasury and extend out that funding window from late 2021 out into 2022 and beyond. In terms of the story of Warintza, this is a world-class discovery made by David Lowell as part of a regional program in the early 2000s. David completed a minimal amount of shallow drilling just on the discovery outcrop in 2000 and 2001 before relations broke down with the local communities. The project then sat largely dormant until there was renewed interest in Ecuador with the opening of the mining sector in 2014, led by our strategic partner, Lundin. The responsible and inclusive approach that they took in advancing Fruta del Norte is really what led to the sentiment shift, particularly in this part of Ecuador, towards foreign participation in the mining sector, and laid the groundwork for us to come in and repair the social license for the Warintza project. We did that through dialogue, which commenced in 2018, and then led to a breakthrough around the consensus for exploration activities to restart in 2018. 2019. That was formalized in a memorandum of understanding, which marked the formal restart of the project. And we've since been able to upgrade that agreement with the local communities and sign an impact and benefits agreement, which we just announced in September. And this picks up where the MOU left off in the exploration stage, and then covers the project all the way through the full life cycle, from production right the way through to closure, with certainty of community support via that agreement. In terms of the project location, again, we're in southeastern Ecuador. This is the Zamora River volcanic belt, which is running roughly north-south here. It's an incredibly prolific and well-endowed mineral belt. At the south end of the belt, you have Fruta del Norte. This is owned by Lundin. And then to the north of that, Mirador. These are the only two commercial mines that you have in Ecuador presently. And Mirador is a good comparable for what we envision at the central zone of Warintza. You've got total resources over 1 billion tons here, over 0.65 copper equivalent. So it's a world-class project, both in terms of scale and grade. Now, this was built by a Chinese joint venture at 60,000 ton a day of scale for $1.4 billion, with first production late last year. And I just underline that capital cost because that would compare at a similar scale to capital costs in the $5 billion plus dollar range for a similar project in Chile, for example. Now, we're located 40 kilometers up the highway, and we benefit from all the same access to infrastructure that drives the capital efficiency for that Mirador project. We've got two porphyries located on our flank called San Carlos and Peraza. These together over 1 billion tons and are also owned by the Chinese. So what you have in this belt, all of these projects are world-class, whether it's gold or copper. You're dealing with world-class scale and then very high grades, certainly just like we have at Warintza. But the difference at Warintza is that we've got a minimal amount of drilling. Only the drilling that David Lowell did in the early 2000s, totaling less than 7,000 meters with a backpack portable rig, just clustered around the discovery outcrop. That basically feeds into that resource estimate that you see there. And that resource is an NI 43-101 compliant resource. It's a current resource, pit optimized, 124 million tons, 0.7 copper equivalent. It's outcropping right at surface. It sits in a pit shell with a strip ratio of less than 1:1. And the important thing to understand, this is based purely on the historical drilling. And so when you look at this resource, you see that it's open in every direction laterally. There's not a single drill hole that's constraining this resource. And then the holes are drilled on average only to 200 meters depth, and they're bottoming in mineralization. So when you look at it, very clear opportunity to grow it at the margins laterally, and then to grow it multiple times down to depth. And that's exactly what we've started to do in the drilling that we've released. So here you see on this slide our first series of holes. The first hole cut 567 meters of 1% copper equivalent from surface. And this isn't a situation where we're taking high grade from depth, then averaging it back up across the hole. This is grade right the way down the hole, consistent grades. So not a situation, again, where you're smearing out a narrow high grade interval, say from skarn mineralization or high sulfidation mineralization, and averaging it out across the porphyry mineralization. This is consistent, clean porphyry mineralization right from surface. Now, we actually felt that we got a little bit unlucky in that first hole because you can see that we went into at the bottom of that interval, a late stage barren dike. And we tried to get out the back of that dike, but weren't successful in doing so as the hole deflected down the dike. So what we did in the second hole is just incline the rig to vertical and attempt to extend that mineralization. And we were successful in doing that. We took the interval in the second hole out to 660 meters at broadly similar sorts of grades. Now, the important thing here is not just the grades and the widths and where they're starting from. It's actually the geological information that we can pull out of this, given the early stage of exploration that we're at. And what we're trying to do with this geological interpretation is place ourselves in the overall architecture of the porphyry system, and then use that to guide our exploration to the future. Our goal here in the central zone with this deep drilling program is to locate the core of the porphyry system, where we expect to find the highest grades, the most intense mineralization, and so on. And so what we did to add more information is we stepped out to the other side of the drill coverage within this central porphyry zone. And you can see that here on this slide with our third hole, where we cut 1,000 meters of 0.7 copper equivalent. Again, this is right from surface. This is from 4 meters depth, the start of the hole. And consistent mineralization all the way down. And in fact, bottoming in mineralization, suggesting that the system is still open beyond 1,000 meters depth. So the name of the game for us, again, is just taking this information now in 2 locations and then putting that together to paint a picture of where we're located in the overall porphyry system. And you can see that on the next slide here, where you're looking at the overall system. So this is 5 kilometers across, what we call the Warintza porphyry trend. That's a world-class footprint, so that would be similar if you were looking at SolGold's Alpala system of porphyries. That would be about 5 kilometers north-south, or something like Oyu Tolgoi in Mongolia or Pebble up in Alaska. Multi-billion ton porphyry systems have similar footprints to what you see here. Now, the resource in all of the drilling that's been done is sitting in that red envelope there. No drilling outside of that in the history of the property. And then we've got copper soil anomaly in green, and then moly soils in blue. And it's actually the moly that you want to focus on, because that's because the moly is totally immobile in the tropical weathering environment. And you can see this in our drilling, where if you're looking through the leached material, super G enriched material, or primary material, you've got incredibly consistent moly value through. Those are moly anomalies that you see there. Those are reflective of the porphyries themselves. And it's no surprise then when you look at the values that you're getting out of those moly anomalies, they're within a few ppm of each other across this 5 by 5 kilometer area. That is the porphyry, or the weathered expression of the porphyry right at surface. Now you can see at central, we've got roughly the double of a footprint within that anomaly relative to the area that we've drilled. And then obviously we've shown that we can extend mineralization down to 1,000 meters, whereas the historical drilling the resource is based on is just in the upper 200 meters. And that's basically your growth opportunity there at Warintza. Now the bigger potential is in the rest of the trend. And the next target that we're going to get to is Warintza West. It's very similar in terms of its footprint and the kind of signature that you see at surface to what we have at central, but there's no drilling there and no outcrop. We actually had to come in here and strip off some of the vegetation and surface cover to expose the underlying rock. And then we came through with a channel sample and cut a result, an open-ended result of 81 meters of 1.1% copper. So that's direct evidence of high-grade porphyry mineralization right at surface at Warintza West. And obviously the next step for us is to come in and drill it. And we're setting up to do that right now. We should be drilling on Warintza West in the next month or so. And if we're successful, we'll be announcing a discovery shortly thereafter. Okay, just zooming out a little bit further and looking at the entire land package now, you have Warintza in the middle, San Carlos Panatza, again, 1 billion tons sitting out there on our flank. And then we've got these series of 3 large-scale gold targets up to the northeast. These were only identified in the surface sampling that we did late last year. And basically what you have are a series of stream sediment anomalies that have then been upgraded with soil work that we did over the top of that. And that southern anomaly is the most advanced of these. This is the largest anomaly. It's roughly 4.5 kilometers east-west by 4 kilometers north-south. And there's a tremendous amount of gold that's shedding out of that area and collecting and concentrating down in the drainages with evidence of historical placer mining there. So that has the potential for us to be a game changer if we're able to make a discovery there. We're in the process of interpreting a geophysical survey that we just flew. That'll add another layer of data to that gold anomaly, and hopefully refine a target for us, with the expectation that we'll be able to get in here and drill this by the end of the year. So that's really the story of Warintza. We're drilling at Central right now, where we have an historic resource that is open in every direction and open at depth. We've got potential to double within the lateral footprint of the drilling within that central anomaly. And then obviously we've already demonstrated that we can take the mineralization down from 200 meters in the historical drilling to now 1,000 meters and potentially beyond. Drilling at Warintza West in the next month or so, and then we'll get to the other targets east and south early in the new year. And then in addition to that, this gold potential that wasn't known to Equinox at the time that it was spun out, but certainly shows up in the more recent work that we've done. We're hoping that we can be in there drilling that southern gold anomaly by the end of the year. And then just to put this in a market context for you, this is essentially the Lassonde curve, so the life cycle of a mining stock, with a real-world example of a world-class discovery in Ecuador, which is SolGold's Alpala project. Now, SolGold is sitting on something like $1.5 billion market cap now, almost 3 billion tons of total resources, and they're working on their next discoveries in actually further south of our location, about 100K to the south. But the peak in their share price, which is the important part for investors, was actually set prior to their maiden resource estimate for their Alpala deposit. And that resource estimate was roughly 1 billion tons of 0.68 copper equivalent. Now, this is underground, of course. And at the time, that was worth about a $1.2 billion market cap for them. So where we're sitting, we've got about a 400 million market cap on the basis of our resource estimate, 124 million tons, 0.7 equivalent. So much smaller in size, but a similar grade in an open pit to what SolGold had in their first resource estimate underground. And it's up to us and the success of the drilling program that we do to try and deliver the kind of resource growth that SolGold's been able to achieve. And that's the opportunity here for shareholders with this Warintza project at this stage. And I'll leave it with that. Please reach out to us. We're very accessible. We respond as quickly as we can to any shareholder inquiries. You can reach us through our website, solarisresources.com.